What's up, everyone? This is Ignatius. I'm bringing to you a video that's kind of in reverse order. Normally, I would release a league start for a PoE 1 new campaign and expansion, and then I'd release videos showing how my character progresses and how you can follow along. This season, I just had a lot of things going on in real life where I really couldn't do that for this PoE 1 season. However, this is in reverse order because I have for you a fairly refined build that was new for me and which I learned this season, and I loved it so much that I plan to do it next season as long as the changes that come out for the next PoE 1 expansion in 4 months don't make it, impossible or, a bad choice to run this build. I don't think they would. So basically what this is me documenting what did I do this league and where did my build get to, and if I follow this next league, this is kind of a reference for me and then anyone who ends up jumping on and wanting to play this build next league as well. Okay, so what is the build? The key cornerstone skill of the build is Incinerate Venting. It is a channeling skill. It stacks up to 18 stages of the channel. You can see them up here. And ends up doing incredible DPS to bosses, and you spin around and it does DPS in an area around you. And the other cornerstone skill is Frostblink of Wintry Blast, which really on its own clears everything in the map, but is also just used for channeling. And the general gameplay is Blink, Incinerate, Blink, Incinerate, Blink, Incinerate. Something scary, we Immortal Call, Blink, Incinerate. And that's the build. Now, I didn't make this build. This build is from Connor Converse. Calls himself One Mana Left. He ran this in the Mercenary season with the Doriani Lightning Res tech and got this build up into the billions of DPS, and that's when I first saw it. But I didn't play it in that season, and I just kind of had it on the back burner that I really wanted to play it. So yeah, this build is Connor's creation. This is Connor's PoEB from that season. At least one of the early ones. He was up to 500 mil DPS with the Doriani stuff. And then here's my POB from this season. I didn't do a whole lot to the configuration, and I also did not get this up to fully optimized. I didn't get incredible rings here, like helical, reflected level rings. And I didn't get the Influence Simplex Amulet and then the corresponding Bound by Destiny. So I came up short in terms of min-maxing quite a bit. Probably the final DPS is like 3 or 4x when you get there. But at the same time, for the way this season was shaking out, you didn't really need to get there because they nerfed Rogue Exile so hard. And doing like an Anarchy boss farm wasn't very good. General map farming just really wasn't that hot this season, so I got it to where it was completely optimized for anything I wanted to do in the game and really fun. And it definitely could get stronger, and maybe I'll get there next season if it's needed. All right, so I talked about what the build is, who made it, and I kind of showed you really quickly how it moves around. But let me talk about why I think this build is unique and really awesome to run in a PoE league, and why I will probably run it again. The first thing that's really attractive about this build for anyone is that it is low dependency. So it doesn't have a lot of items that are like really expensive and totally cornerstone to making the build work. And you don't get blocked on needing like a Giga weapon. Like this season, if you didn't have a Giga wand for almost a mirror in cost, your power level was significantly reduced. There's also other ways you save lots of necessary currency that's needed for getting the build online. Because of Frostblink of Wintry Blast, you don't really need movement speed on boots, so you can get some Giga boots with no movement speed. This season we had the Breach Tree, and that wasn't really something that saved me any currency, but it would have in another season, I think. And then you don't really have to worry about how do I stack crit chance and pen, because on the Inquisitor, these are solved very nicely by Inevitable Judgment, which ignores enemy resists when we crit and pens when we don't. But we always crit because we do Instruments of Virtue and we run Zealotry with a Watcher's Eye that gives us crit chance for anything that's on our consecrated ground. So crit cap was actually really easy to hit, or at least nearly crit cap, and then if they're on the consecrated ground, totally crit cap. We always have consecrated ground because of Sanctuary. and we always ignore resist. So these are two reasons why we save tons of money. The weapon, so all of the damage is based on Energy Blade, which is converting our weapon into this mega lightning nuke. And then we run Spellblade support in our spell gems, which basically borrow this one-handed melee damage and turn it into spell damage for our spells. Something like that happens there. The take-home point being that you really can get this build online for pretty cheap. I mean, I think at 50D you can clear everything. I really mean everything. Maybe not like the really deep delve. I've never really gotten there. But certainly like all the pinnacle bosses, Giga tier 17s, all that stuff, really cheap to get through all of it. And then, everything else from there is just quality of life and more survivability and killing things faster. Now, there is a weakness, which I'll mention here because I just talked about getting it online cheap and killing things faster. To me, the clear isn't very clean. So, in PoE games, I usually enjoy some skill where shooting out a massive like AoE of projectiles, right? And everything's dying. Or I've run Mjolnir in PoE 1 and the ball lightning of orbiting with AoE takes care of everything. This clear isn't that clean. So the Frostblink of Wintry Blast doesn't hit everything. We run Ariath's End to sort of help with that, and it works pretty well. And then the Incinerate of Venting also does not always hit everything. You really have to, the default AoE is like, kind of this range of space right here. And then you do get some damage just to the side of you, but you can see that animation. It doesn't really go out that far. So you have to spin around, and you don't always hit everything. So the cleanness is probably the only weakness of this build. Okay, let's go back to the strengths. This build is a bossing monster. It is ridiculously tanky, and my final build sort of started to take away from the tankiness just to kill things faster for more fun. But you stack block. You have these recovery mechanisms that are based on blocking and based on armor. We recover ES on block. We gain charges on block with the shield. We recover ES when we take fizz damage from a hit. And when we prevent fizz damage, we regenerate as ES here. With Zealot's Oath, we convert all of our regeneration to ES regeneration, and we have perma-consecrated ground. We run regenerate on a flask and regenerate on the implicit of the boots. So yeah, we're just super, super tanky. Now, there are builds that are tankier because Energy Blade takes out your energy shield in a pretty sad way. So if I take E-Blade off, I'm at 19k. E-Blade on, I'm at 12.2. So that's a pretty big reduction, but it's not hardcore. And we could go a little higher on this enhanced to get that a little bit better, I think. But yeah, that is to say it is like really, really tanky. And because it's block-based, if you wanted more tankiness, you could run block clusters. You could stack more block on your basic jewels. There's some more block nodes on the tree. There's a lot you could do to be better at blocking. The other thing that makes it a boss monster is it's got this kind of like just stand there and hose component to it. And the longer you hose, the more damage you do, and the longer you're standing here, like you've got focus channeling or infused channeling, so you take less damage from hits. You're on consecrated ground, all this stuff. I have a little clip that I had grabbed. Let me see if I can pull it up really quickly. And basically, I may be able to show this live, but this shows it so nicely. You basically can stand in one place. So this is the Ziggurat map boss. And I'm just standing here in the middle shooting to the left. I'm going to kill that guy. Boom, gone. And then she's going to, become targetable herself. Kill that guy. Boom, gone. Then I'm going to just turn and point the Incinerate over this way. And this guy's going to spawn and kill him. So my character never leaves the middle. And this boss is really finicky to deal with, in my opinion. Like, it can be kind of a challenge on certain characters. A bow character will just get wrecked trying to kill this boss over and over. And this character just stands in the middle and just delivers Incinerate around the board. You never let go of right click. It's really fun and incredibly potent. The bossing is really enjoyable. The clear style has flexibility to it. So I'll show in this showcase a little swap I did for Delve. I'm not a PoE expert by any means. I'm new in PoE 1. I started in Affliction, so I don't know Delve very well. It was my first season delving at all. But I did know I didn't want to do this for all of Delve. I didn't want to sit here and spin my mouse around and basically like rack my wrist or something terrible. So Connor had mentioned swapping in a Voltaxic Burst, and I went out and got an Awakened AoE and swapped that out for the Focus Channeling. And in Delve, we just get to the spot we want to get to, and we just go like this. And I didn't change anything else. I mean, I'm sure you could optimize the heck out of this as you get deeper into Delve if you need to, and run all sorts of things that help with the Voltaxic Burst. But just those 2 gem swaps, and you are Delve eligible. The other thing I did with this build was for Blight, I ran like the rippiest Blight maps you could possibly run, which if you saw in last season or previous seasons, even the highest tune multi-mirror characters can die in those Blight events. Well, this character did not, because I swapped in Flame Blast to Celerity, and once again, AoE. And again, just those 2 gems. There's probably a way to do it better. I'm not an expert, but just those 2 gems. I have a widescreen monitor, so I was able to hold like all the way out here, but even on this size monitor, you can tell if the Blight were all the way up here, we are flame blasting off the screen with a manually cast skill. And so with Ariath's End, I was doing the zaniest Blight encounters that were just like so rippy with massive boss encounters and Titanic Scarabs and modifiers on them. And I was just chilling back here and doing this. Super enjoyable. So the clearest, the way I tag what this is that you've got some flexibility in like how you want to clear things based on content. Because of Spellblade and just the 6 link here, the gems are somewhat hot swappable. I don't intend to be misleading there at all. I've never played like a Voltaxic Burst main. I've never played a Flame Blast to Celerity main. I just dropped those in and it worked this season. So that's all I can say for it. The last thing, and this is, I don't know, I don't want to understate this. PoE 1, I suppose the thing they are trying to do in PoE 2 is retain like visceral combat where you have to pay attention to what happens and react to what's on the screen. Because in PoE 1, you just like get your build online, you get your, 200 div character or your mirror tier character going, and then you can just like hold right click and run. Some people enjoy that. A part of me enjoys that as well. But what I enjoyed about this build is that the clear speed was really fast and optimal, but that visceral engagement is there. You have to pay attention and swap between the 2 skills and move your Incinerate around. It's enough engagement and reactivity that for me, it made it more fun. Some might consider that a downside. I don't know. For me, it was really fun. Okay, let's move on to showcases. So I'm going to show 3 things if time allows me here. I'm going to show you a T17 Ziggurat that's, giga juiced. The Screaming Invitation, that's some Uber boss. I don't fully know the name for it. And then I'm going to swap over for Delve and just kind of show these things very quickly. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it. So this is a Delirious Ziggurat. Maven interferes. Monsters have pen. All sorts of bad things. And monsters have extra damage random to element. I actually won't be surprised if I die in this based on how my character currently is, but maybe not. And then unique monsters have a shrine buff, which is going to make the boss like so brutal to kill. So we'll see how we do here. First thing I'll showcase is that because of Frostblink and Wintry Blast, I can just dash out to the boss. Which is nice on maps like this because I just had an altar spawn there. You want your altars to not have the boss mods. Some builds, if you have to run to the boss, you've got to kill things as you run. In this build, we can just like dash right there. All right, so you can see how nicely she just got wiped off the map. And now we just continue to hold Incinerate, and we blast to the south here. Gone. Gone. Whew! I thought that might kill me. It didn't. Actually, I don't know if I'm close enough to hit this guy over here. I'm going to move a little bit and reset. And yeah, this encounter, so this boss is one of my favorite ones to fight because like I spent a long time one season learning this encounter and like understanding the damage types and all that stuff. And when I realized this character could wipe this encounter out like this on pretty low budget, it was amazing. And my current character iteration is not low budget. I think I'm in probably like the 300 to 400 div range on this iteration. Maybe cheaper if I was smarter about certain things. But yeah, that's the Nightmare of Katarina. How cool is that? I just think that is so awesome to be able to sit there and just wipe her off the map like that. Oh, God, and her fragments. Oh, my God. So awesome. Okay, so for the rest of the map, I won't show the whole thing, but just enough to see the gameplay. You hold right-click so that you have Perma Incinerate, and then you push another button to blink, and it temporarily takes over the right-click. So, you know, it's really smooth, but it's also very engaged. The Frostblink is very potent. You can just blink around like this and not incinerate, and probably if I got all the way min-maxed, you could just like 6-link Frostblink, but I don't know. That's kind of... no thanks. You know what I mean? No thanks to that. Incinerate's too cool. We have to use it. Oh, the other thing I want to show is Harvest, because this character is just really good at content where you stand there and just like blast the minions. We are really optimized for, so we're not going to let go of this Incinerate. We just blast, blast, blast. Everything dies. It's so awesome. Here comes the boss. I got to give him a little chance so that he doesn't get bugged. And he got bugged anyway. I hate this boss and how he does that. Don't ruin my life, please. If you know these harvest bosses, they get bugged if you don't fight them in a certain way. It's so annoying. There we go. I got him. I got him to actually phase. Boom. Okay. We'll get out of this map. Hopefully that was a good showcase for the mapping. You bounce this out. Now, on this invitation, I do think this boss can be killed without phasing. And it happens for me sometimes. And then sometimes he does like a little blink move. And then he does phase. I don't know if that's my fault because I'm not super familiar with the boss encounter or what. Oh, this has been a fun thing this season, getting sent back to the lobby when you just try and take your portals. GGG, feel free to fix this one. I don't ask for too much. Taking my portals would be nice. Yeah, and again, this is another one where if I did fully min-max the character, it's probably an always instant delete of this boss. And then any boss where they have like a spawning timer, you can juice up your 18 stages and your focused channeling to max before the boss even comes out, and then they just like completely get erased. This boss spawns really fast, so I can't really do that for this one, but we'll see how this goes. Sweet. What a good showcase. So yeah, super potent there. That's awesome. Okay, and then I'll go show just like a little bit of Delve. So again, for Delve, we're going to throw in Voltaxic Burst. We're going to take out Focus Channeling because Voltaxic's too expensive mana-wise anyway to really, take advantage of it. I'm not in super deep Delve. This is my first season delving. It's been really fun. I want to delve so much more next season. I'm at depth 190. I think I heard that 900 is like max difficulty, so probably my character needs like more tankiness and stuff to delve at that difficulty. But the idea here is to show you the mechanics of delving, so you can blink around. It's very fast for moving with the cart, and then you just hold down Voltaxic Burst, and it's just constantly triggering on you. And to me, it seems like, I haven't had a ton of unique, diversity of delve encounters, but to me, it seems like you get to the yellow circle. If there's a thing you have to click on, you click on it, and then you sit here, and you just hold down the button. So if you wanted to, you can incinerate and you could spin in circles, but yeah, you can just hold down Voltaxic Burst like this. You can swap in a gem for content like this and hold down Voltaxic Burst. When I was doing strong boxes later in the season, I widened the AoE and switched to Voltaxic Burst, and you just click box and hold down Burst. It was so awesome. Okay, that's kind of how it works for Delve, I think. Last thing, I just want to make some mentions about gear and passive tree. Again, some of this is like just a time capsule for myself, but if you're new to the build and learning things about it, this could be helpful to look at it. So weapon, it's a whatever weapon, but you can use an Abyss socket, and this actually works even though we swap to Energy Blade. So yeah, if we turn Energy Blade off, if you don't know, it's just a Reaver Axe with an Abyss socket. Somebody correct me if I'm really, really bad and I didn't know this, but I don't think it matters what you have here. It's just the links and the Abyss socket. Helmet, you've got your standard ES stacking res in helmet, plus the level of socketed gems, which is really nice. And then, some Eldritch implicit stuff that's helpful. I'll get to the shield last. Armor, same thing. Pretty standard. Attributes, IMR, int, ES, and then implicits. Boots, again, same thing. We do run Arctic Armor for freeze immune. And then if you don't want to be on Brine King for freeze immune, you can run Arctic Armor, and then you get to go with Lunaris, and then you can craft Chill Immune on the boots. I did have another pair of boots that was more standard. It was 35 move with Chill Immune on the boots. Those were fine too, but these were like cheaper to get more of what I wanted. And the implicits on the boots are a little bit more important than elsewhere. Gloves, Shaper's Touch. There's a base spell crit chance implicit that can roll on Shapers. Definitely look out for that if you're running it next season. The belt, I started with, I think it's called Cyclopean Coil. It's like a cheap, pretty common, unique belt that gives you attributes. Was very strong with that. And then, of course, Mage Blood's a massive upgrade. You get to run the, 70% max res flasks, and those just were really game-changing for the build and survivability. Amulet Best in slot is Simplex. This Eyes of the Great Wolf is not that expensive. The 32% attributes ones this season were honestly surprisingly cheap. 2 div here, and then you can take your pick at several other types of implicits. I think 2 seasons ago this amulet was like way more expensive. Maybe I'm misremembering, but yeah, it was surprisingly cheap to get that going. And then these Cogwork rings, they look pretty sexy, but they're not compared to the helical equivalent with the Calendar's Touch. That swap is like 100, can be like 100 div swap, and I don't fully know how to craft that ring intelligently, which so I probably waste a lot of money trying to do it. These I was able to make. They're really easy and simple, and they do the trick. You want cast speed, ES, strengthen it, and then an open prefix for crafting the -3 to total mana cost. Okay, on to the sexiest of sexy shields. This thing I did learn a lot about this season because I just find this shield to be really attractive. The standard ES shield base, I can't remember what it's called, but the base ES on it's going to be like around 100, and then you roll int and recover 5% ES when you block. What's special about this one is it is multi-influence, so we have Shaper and Crusader. And surprisingly, the Shaper mod is actually the gain Endurance Frenzy power charge on block. I love that mod. It is so cool. I'm basically permanently triple charged. It's so fun to do that through block. I just think it's awesome. And then the Recover ES on block, if you've never used it, is completely OP. It's so awesome. I can basically, most mobs, I can just stand there. And my recovery is so good that it's like AFK Sim in PoE 2. Like, the globe just goes maybe a quarter down, and I can stand and tank almost anything. It's crazy. And then you do really, really want the available prefix for +2 to level of socketed supports. Some people may not know this about Energy Shield, but the quality is extremely important. This gives you more max Energy Shield, which is basically reducing the downside of Energy Shield. So by default, it halves your Energy Shield to turn it on, and then the quality makes that halving effect less painful. So right now it's at 35, and so the +2 is really helpful there. I think that's it for items that I really want to talk about. I don't want to be too exhaustive with this because this isn't like an intro to season build or anything like that. This is after everything's done. The gem links are here in the POB, and they're, I think, pretty self-explanatory. As far as the tree, I did do a lot of experimenting this season with the tree, and I'll just give a few quick notes about what's mandatory and then where there may be room to do something a little bit cooler. I don't know for sure. Now, the reason there's flexibility is because the build revolves around mana res efficiency, right? And so I run these smalls that are 6% with 35 increase effect. There's 2 of them here, and there's 2 of them here. You don't actually need 4 of them. You can run just 2, and then you just take more IMR on the tree. You could even get more on your gear. But yeah, there's lots of little spots for IMR on the tree that help out as well. Also, your mana pool does not have to be 332. I did this for quality of life. You can hold your Incinerate at like level 11, and you can hold your Frost Blink at like, I think it's like level 6 or 12. There's a benchmark for AoE that you want to hit. And then, you know, especially with the Incinerate, when your Focus Channeling builds up and it starts to cost a lot more mana, if the base level of the Incinerate is not too high, you'll be fine on mana. For quality of life, I just wanted a larger mana pool, and I didn't want to have to ever let go of my right click on Incinerate or have it reset itself. So I went with more IMR in different places, and just, I don't know, it was just cozy for that reason. And I was able to fit in all of the RS without, you know, any worry. I was able to max out Clarity, which to me is just like more quality of life. Not have to worry about that. So that's a little bit of flexibility. The other flexibility is I feel like there's a way to fit in split personalities with strength and int. I did it in one like little iteration. I basically cut the bridge right here, and I rolled this all the way over here, and I put split personalities down here. I can't remember how long that chain was, but you can see it's pretty long. There's a couple of things I didn't like about it. You know, it's not efficient. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this is 2. So even though you're gaining stats down here by doing that, there's nothing you're taking along the way here. And you have to come here for CI, and influence is obviously very good. And then you have to come down here. I mean, I guess you necessarily maybe don't have to come right here, but then you'd be coming here and your split personalities are missing like all these nodes. The other thing is you don't need two. I'm running two 12 passive clusters because they are like all T1, super strong, almost perfectly rolled. I didn't have that at first. I was running 8 passives with some block nodes and things like that. So then it could really change what you do. The other thing I didn't do here is Flesh Flame. I did see some cool builds running some, you know, good Flesh Flame choices. There's a few good choices. The Sanctuary Thought, I think, was the most common. Obviously, very strong to get that much more yes. You do get a little bit more AoE, which is awesome. And then the regen 1% per second is not nothing. Kind of cool. The other thing I saw commonly was Unwavering Faith. So you would get 50% IMR for your tool, two just like random jewel sockets. So then you could really think about dropping these, or maybe dropping passive slots that are giving you IMR. And you would save like a lot of skill points, right? Because these are soaking up, what, like we would say like 6 each, right? Not 8, because we're going to take those anyway. But these are soaking up like 6 each. So yeah, those are kind of the places that I saw for flexibility. And then on the Ascendancy itself, you always get to choose between Sanctuary and Augury. I don't know which was better this season, and if somebody knows for sure, let me know. The reason I don't know for sure is because you create Consecrated Ground anyway, so you don't need this to get Consecrated Ground. You know, you create it through a couple different methods, and you can also run a Bottled Faith. However, having it permanently was kind of cool, and I did notice that when you have Sanctuary, the Consecrated Ground stays on while you're blinking because you're not technically walking. So it turns off while you walk, but while you Frost Blink, it stays on, which, I don't know, it seems kind of awesome to me, because then the crit chance that you're getting from the Watchers and from Zealotry, I think it's called, yep, more spell crit chance on Consecrated Ground, or maybe that's just always. It gives a chance to create Consecrated Ground against stronger enemies. Okay, maybe that's where I was thinking it was generated from. But yeah, we'll go back to the crit chance from the Watcher's Eye, so that way I say something that's accurate here. It's 112 increased when standing on Consecrated Ground and affected by Zealotry. Well, you know, when you're walking around, the Consecrated Ground goes away, but if you're just blinking and then not moving, which we never do because we blink and then we channel, and we blink and we channel, the Consecrated Ground is a literal permanent effect with all that crit bonus stuff. So, yeah, pretty cool. I don't know. I just think it's pretty cool. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to mention about gear and passive tree. The last thing I'll say is how I would league start this. Next league And honestly, I'm kind of throwing this out. If anybody, better at this game than me watches this video and knows a better way to go about this, let me know. I see kind of two routes. We're going to roll an old man. The way I did it this season was I started out with Kinetic Bolt. You're supposed to go rolling Magma, but I hate that skill. So it was Kinetic Bolt. We rolled Mana Man. We went Totems. Totems cleaned up maps for a while. And then I got the, key gear pieces for setting up the Incinerate, and I swapped over to Inquisitor. I kind of want to do some practice campaign runs where I just go like YOLO into the archetype of the build somewhat. I think there's some hybrid like setup in campaign you get to, and then you could swap over to a regular Incinerate before you have, the special gem. I don't know if that's going to be like so painful that it's awful. I think there's something nice about feeling the playstyle of your character progress and grow as the season goes on. So the earlier I can switch, the better for me from that standpoint. But if it's too awful, you don't want to do it, of course. So yeah, I'll probably leading up to the next PoE 1 league, if it looks like this build is still looking like a great idea, I'm going to do some league start old man practices to see how early we can get into channeling and blink, and how viable that is early on, even as early as like Act 6 of the campaign. I think it could be really fun to do that and then just watch the build grow. I think that's it. I hope this video is helpful. Once again, I'm a bit of a potato in PoE 1. I feel like I'm still, I'm in PoE 1 university every league. I'm still just like learning so much, especially like with crafting and the min-maxing of builds. I just don't have that intuitive knowledge of the game that I think is so essential for getting optimal in awareness in those places really quickly, like the amazing content creators we have do. But I really wanted to share this to anyone who is out there who may follow a build I play next league, or who is interested in it this league even. And then I kind of wanted to leave it here for myself, so that way I can come back and understand everything I learned this season and reapply it next season for PoE 1. Thank you anyone for watching. Take care, and throw your shame on me in the comments, or constructive criticism welcome, and we can keep building the discussion on this game and maybe this build specifically. Thank you.